Welcome to the Transgenerational Dialogue India and the World. We're back with another episode with another hot topic around the world with the advent of internet and social media. The primary objective that it serves is to connect you with people, and we connect over our thoughts, over our feelings, and over our opinions. With the advent of all of this, we have noticed internet has become such a big uh, instrument to communicate and also spread the ideas, which often tend to be unconventional as well. With social media, we have often seen the tweets or the opinions expressed which are withdrawn. Users have cancelled or may be subjected to imprisonment, murders, etc. Even before the social media invention, we always had ostracization of people who had an unpopular opinion. At a more personal level, you could be paying a personal penalty of being ostracized from a social group or your community if you had expressed opinion very different from that of your own peers. Similarly, we have also seen paintings being burnt, books being banned, movies being banned, and so on, right through the history of human civilization. So, we'd like to talk about free speech today. We would like to talk about how much entitled are we to have our opinions, have it expressed, and getting it accepted by others. So let's start our conversation. I have with me Urva Raval and Dr. Rajesh Raval, and with myself, Dr. Gargi. So let's start with you, Dr. Raval. What is your opinion around free speech? And tell us a little bit more about what is a purist or what is a mixed and what is like a culture against free speech and where do you fall into these categories?
Yeah, maybe I was very lucky to be born in the time when the free speech was uh, cultivated. So democracy was rising. India and many parts of the world, many different countries of the world became democratic. And at least theoretically, the idea of the free speech was coming into the existence. And uh, even though it did not it did not exist as a perfect absolute free speech idea, but then also the idea of the free speech itself was so much enchanting, and it was so much creating an interest in me that this is the free time of to be free human being. So I think it was interesting time, and the more we are going towards the information age where the exchange of the information is much more easier. Earlier, it was only through the books and the magazines and the newspapers, and then the TV took part of it. But still, the information exchange at an individual level was not so much like the internet media. So I think we are just lucky enough that in human history we are at the time when we can think and talk even today right now on internet about the free speech, because I think in the large past of the history of the humanity, when we were living in tribal culture or something, then at that time to have an individual opinion or free speech was not necessarily appreciated. So I consider myself an free speech, absolute free speech advocate, and I don't mind that if there is a free speech where you speak uh, whatever you feel like without fear. So I would consider myself an advocate of the absolute freedom of speech. Yeah.
Urva, coming to you, please elaborate a little bit on what is a purist, what is a mixed, and what is against free speech, and where do you fall into the spectrum?
So, if you are an absolute free speech person, then you may say that, let's say, if a speech uh, is inciting violence, as many times we hear, or say sedition, it's having creating a hatred to the country in the population. So a lot of people, including me, would say that even if it is inciting violence, or even if it is inciting, it is sedition, you should allow free speech. Uh,
Uh,
yeah, so completely absolute free speech means there are no restrictions. There should be no restrictions on speech.
uh,
But of course, mixed people, I guess most people lie into this category that you should have a mixed, that there are some reasonable restrictions that one can apply, the government should apply, such as you said, in sedition, or there are also some people who would claim that certain comments that are affecting certain communities, say casteist comment, or other comments that can harm certain groups of people, should also be not allowed. And there are, I guess, almost nobody lies into a category that don't support free speech. But there might be people who think that if their opinions don't align with the rest of people, they shouldn't be allowed to speak. But of course, I again agree with Dr. Rajesh that uh, there should be absolute free speech, and uh, uh, we shouldn't restrict it. And especially in a democracy, it's a pillar of democracy. Democracy is not possible without free speech.
okay. Well, talking about myself over this issue, I guess, yeah, I do fall into the mixed category because all of us feel that there has to be, I guess most of the people do feel that there has to be some restriction, but that some could be very, very different person to person. I guess even pure free speech, as you both are claiming to advocate, is the kind where, again, you can say anything. So basically, there's nothing like talking about something else. You could also say curse anybody, or you can also uh, I don't know, defame anybody, right? You can just put any allegations, anything that you want to say. So it could go to basically concept of defamation would never exist if it were free speech, right? So basically, it's being able to say any damn thing that you want to say. I really don't know if you agree with this casteist and all those comments, which we all generally agree should not be spread. But with free speech, I guess you could again make casteist comments, make racist comments, or any other equivalent that exists in the geography. So, well, I guess I will not advocate free speech in that concept where you can just literally say anything against anybody or anything to a reasonable extent, to a reasonable quantity, to a average moral standard, a moral fabric of the society. It should be agreeing to that. So, of course, not disrespecting, not causing any other harm, basically.
Hmm.
We'll get into detail as to what is personally acceptable to me or not in further uh, conversation.
Hmm.
Fine. Let's talk about the laws around these free speech areas. Dr. Rajesh, please elaborate on what are the existing laws around freedom of speech in India, in Europe, and in US, and also talk about what they have been like in the history and currently, if there's any change, and if there's any change, what does it signify and how it has shaped up over the years.
Yeah, talking about India because we are coming from India. So India became independent in 1947, and when the Constitution Committee met together and established the Constitution. After that, the first amendment in the Constitution was brought to restrict the free speech. So this was exactly done uh, in order to suppress communist view. So there was one person, Ramesh Thapar. He was of communist mindset, and he had criticized the Nehruvian government and the Nehruvian ideas in his fortnightly magazine or something like that. And he was restricted by the Madras High Court, basically. And uh, because of this restriction, which was brought by Jawaharlal Nehru, and this is quite a pity that just when the constitution was signed, just in half an hour, the first amendment is proposed by the government, and that is to restrict the fundamental human right which is given by the constitution. So just now you are telling that this constitution is perfect, and just in half an hour you want to make a change that this is not perfect, and you want to make a change restricting something which is giving the fundamental right to the human being in India. So this was quite a pity that this thing happened. And in the same way, like in American democracy, when the first amendment was made, at that time the state was barred to make any changes in free and absolute speech. No. So, like for instance, it does not matter what I speak on whatever topic or whatever issue, somebody will be there who will get offended. No, and it is the onus is not always on me to take care about if somebody is getting offended or not, because then I have to check my speech each and every time. And usually human being is very emotional person, and like for instance, when you have just some bad interaction in the traffic cars you with someone, you just have a spat, then you don't look at what are the laws and why how I should react. But maybe I think even though we agree, like how Gargi says, that the idea of the moderate speech which is applicable and acceptable in the society also, but I think very fast people become abusive when they are emotional, and very fast they will express abusive words, especially to the vulnerable people. Like for instance, in America, you can say black are the vulnerable people. In India, we say that the children and the women are vulnerable. But most of the abusive words are also evolved around this vulnerable group, especially women and all. So it becomes very, even though we say that the restriction should be made, but this restriction is not applied in day-to-day life. And this is something which is there. And there is also a European context, like in the Europe, the
I
concept
would
of
like to check in, what is your moral fabric like? Do you think it should be there, or cursing is okay because anyways it is not being restricted? So
no, I think the restriction law is even though it is there on the, like for instance, defamation law is there, right? But like if you or me or Urvak will go into the court that this person is defaming me, then
mm-hmm.
court is not even taking our cases, right? Although we consider that in our friend circle or in the group of people whom we know, this was a big insult, right? So like this, the laws are also not applied equally to everyone. So I don't think that the court should waste time on something. Better we can create a character where we are absolutely not getting affected by the emotive verbal diarrhea or something like that. Yeah. So I think if the person is trained into this, then this is much better. Maybe the right from the childhood, if we are getting training in the schools for accepting others with a quite different and diverse opinion than ours, no, and not getting too much emotive about it, so that can help. uh, and I talk about America, I talk about India, and I would like to talk also about Europe, that in Europe democracy was basically French were the one who gave the democracy, and now you can see right now France is fighting tooth and nail to keep this freedom of speech. Okay, even though this freedom of speech is abusive to some particular group of religion or people or something, they would like to have this absolute freedom of speech, what they have been enshrined in the constitution and what they have been given into the constitution. So uh, the same people who are getting very emotive about getting defamed or getting abusive for their religion or caste or group or something like that, the same people are very at the drop of hat are able to abuse and defame anyone, and even their religious book itself is also full of the hatred towards the other entities, you know? So uh, my freedom of speech is good for me and the world, and your freedom of speech is not good for the world. So this kind of opinion should not be entertained, and I believe still that the French opinion of absolute freedom of speech, you are allowed to speak whatever you want, and but you should not restrict my freedom. So that is, I think, very much needed, you know. And I, that is inspiring also for me to reach this standard, although we are calling ourselves a liberal society, and we are born in the liberal society, and liberty is very much close to the French people in their heart, but uh, it is still far to achieve, and I think we are on the way to achieve. There are a lot of benefits of liberal democratic values in this society, and I think the way forward will come a time when we'll be able to accept the absolute freedom of speech. So that's what I hope so.
Sure. What do you think about that, Urwag? What is your opinion on the existing laws, the past laws, and the kind of changes that are coming to and things shaping up?
So I'm not really sure about the past laws, but the way I see today in India is that I just saw this list of books that are banned in India, right? And that's just crazy. How can you ban a book, right? And I cannot think how a book uh, can in any ways and all these books are on very important topics, such as there was a book on the Kashmir issue, right, or certain wars that India has had. So it is quite interesting that so very important books that might change public opinion are being banned, and then certain, sedition laws being misused, and we see that every day, right? And there are people who would support certain actions of the government that are restrictive to free speech also, right? So it's I don't think that at least in the present we have much free speech, or a lot of laws are being misused and used in the way they are not intended to be, uh, to do things. So I don't think that the current system is in any ways giving free speech to people.
Right.
Yeah.
I would still chip in to say that I don't have a very negative bias around or negative view around it. In general, I'm not that pessimistic that I have completely rid of my life of my right of free speech. But of course, I don't see any law which is not being misused for that matter. Nothing
Yes.
ever is being used
Yeah.
as it is supposed to be used. So I am not really in favor of removing those laws altogether. I think they should still be in place. Of course, there has to be a system that prevents this also. Uh, uh, I really don't know. The answer probably lies in a culture where everybody respects everyone, which is not attained by the laws or the constitution and things like that. Because when, as Dr. Rajesh talked about, probably the certain religion that is causing problems in France. Uh, we have also had books or and paintings being banned which depict Hindu goddesses or Hindu gods in a certain way, and they have been banned to people's delight. So, if of course whoever is in power will make the use of these things to ban certain things. Now, again, it's a very subjective matter as to uh, which expression was worthy of banning and which one was not. But I do feel that there has to be some regulation, although more morally sound, more just. Uh, but it has to stay. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I would like just like to add one thing that
Mm,
I guess we're discussing certain of my opinions before, right? And there were many people who told me that don't put it on the internet, right?
mm,
there that's my father tells me that, Dr. Rajesh tells me that, right? And that you can see that there isn't freedom of speech when people advise you not to put things on the internet, right? So yes, I just got this. And so yeah.
because we could be paying some penalty of this podcast, maybe.
Yeah. and
But
and that
the
was,
thing is, it's not new. The point that I want to make is that it's not really a new thing. It's always been there, and this is also how we operate in all the areas of life. Even even personally, we do not say all the things that we believe are true, right? So that's the way human civilization works. That you cannot say everything that you want to say, and that probably that's how we are surviving. So yes, of course, it has been a bit too much. We could allow more space, more freedom, yes. But a complete freedom, even in theory, to me sounds absurd. Fine. We'll move on to the current hot topic. Let's talk about the present age. Let's talk about the newest thing, that is social media. An unprecedented power to even a normal individual to express his opinion and to reach a worldwide audience. And now that power to change and to express your opinion and be heard by virtually all the world, that has been unprecedented. We never have had that in the history. And with social media, this battle has even become stronger, more trickier, and a lot more intense, I guess. So let's talk about the free speech in the social media space, Dr. Raval. What are your thoughts on the current situation of uh, the whole decorum around the social media, and what changes do you want to see?
I think social media is just a reflection of the society which is around us.
Mm,
And like in communists, they say that among the equals, there are more equals. You know.
mm,
So just like this, like for instance, right now, if anybody writes, if I have an exchange about difference of opinion with someone in the Twitter, then if the other person is going on, is using his freedom of speech to abuse or downgrade my idea or something like that, then I'm not able to. I'm not having the blue tick in the Twitter that I
mm,
can restrict these people. Okay, but if
mm,
Rahul Gandhi or Narendra Modi has this blue tick, then they can filter all these kind of messages out.
mm,
So their followers are only seeing the good messages. So
mm,
they are more equal than among the equals. No, so we have
mm,
got the equality that we can write a direct message to the President of India or Prime Minister of India or Prime Minister of America. We can directly write and tweet to them, but they have more authority to filter out the. I think this is just a reflection of the society what we have, and we are still in the society something like the communists, that among the equals there are more equals, among the mm, normal democracy there are allied people. No, so these are like Twitter allies you can call with the blue tick, right? But this is happening, and I don't think that as a I still put my case that when you are having free speech, absolute, only the deed of the person should be punished. Like even if some Like I remember that in the beginning of the independent India, there were some court cases and all, and there they even consider that if somebody is threatening for murder or something under the freedom of speech, and these people were allowed to go. No,
Oh.
but so so
Mm.
I believe that if somebody is speaking, it should not be taken into account, but the person's deed should be taken into account. And person's deed should be punishable, but the person's words or freedom of speech should not be punishable under any act. And because the
So
words
basically,
don't.
no punishment for threats, or yeah.
Hmm?
So no punishments for threats.
Yes, yes, I
Oh.
as I said, I am absolute advocate of the absolute freedom of. So whatever you want to speak about it, even if it is sedition or something, it has space in the society because it is coming also from the human being. But I don't think that anyone should be punished for something what he spoke. No. But if he did something, then he
Hmm.
can be punished. But for speaking something, I don't think that anybody
So
should be.
let's just I would like to chip in a little bit here. This is considering that speech is not a deed in itself.
Yeah.
Like deed is something physical. Some physical event has to take place in order for something to be a legitimate act, or like it's like speech is not at all an act. You mean?
No, I
Or
think this
something
is.
to be punished, for something to be punishable, or harm has to be a certain physical harm.
Yes, like for instance, there can be also emotional hurt done to some individuals. I am not denying that, but usually I am still thinking that the person should be immune enough to disregard the uh, words of other person because the words are not still deeds.
Okay.
Okay.
At least it should not be punishable under law, you can talk about that words are harming emotionally, especially when it is exploitation, when it is uh, physical abuse, also with the mental abuse or emotional abuse, then I think it should be punishable. But if there is only emotional abuse by speaking, or then I think the more training is required for the person so that he can become immune enough not to get affected by those words,
Yeah.
because there will be always somebody who will have a difference of opinion than
We're
other
not talking
us.
about opinions here. It's just also about uh, out and out. Say, for example, cursing someone, right? If you
Yeah,
like just say out and out, disrespectful things, and it should be like I should be immune enough to take that and not complain
yeah,
and just take it
yeah.
by the stride, which probably doesn't sound correct to me.
Okay.
Let's go to one.
Okay, so I know that we are going off topic here, but the way I look at freedom of speech is more of a pillar of democracy instead of a human right. Yes. So of course we write it and talk about it like a human right, but it's not really a right. It's just that a free discussion is important for democracy, not important, necessary for democracy. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess so. I would say that Dr. Rajesh's position is very strong, and that's astonishing for me. That what if there is a threat? Because I would say that what if somebody takes a knife and points at your neck and says, "Okay, give me your wallet," right? Isn't that threat, right? It is coercion, right? Even though there
No,
is.
that's threat because he's showing me the knife and he's putting on my throat. Okay, but
So
if he's
basically,
just
he's punishable because he showed knife, not because he said, "You get me the wallet."
No,
yes.
no, no. showing the knife is that it is not just the freedom of speech, it is freedom of speech and expression, right? So it is an expression to put the knife at the neck. It's not just speech, right? It's everything. It's writing, it's physically, not standing for the national anthem as Supreme Court recently, right? So it is expression, it's any kind of expression. So I'm not that much of an absolute free speech advocate. I do understand that at least when there are consequences, it could be.
Yeah. And probably, I guess, a culture which undermines the power of word here. Because at one point, we are just so advocating speech because we will really believe it's a very powerful weapon. But when you have that responsibility of the power, you are taking it off by saying it's just a few words. It's just, it doesn't have that power. You should be immune to it because it doesn't really matter as much.
Yes, but so I guess whenever words are linked to a physical action, then the words themselves can be punishable, right? So I would give you a very simple example that if you lie in an advertisement, you could be punished for lying about your product, right? So that speech, right? You are punishing speech, then do you believe that? But the crime was not lie. So what's the crime if I lie about the product I'm selling, right? So whenever a speech is linked to an action, it's a promise. It's I guess it is similar with defamation, that you are doing whenever you are defaming a person, what happens is that you're promising people that you are knowing certain truths about the person while you are not, right? Yeah, and then you can say an expectation that you are being honest, right? So that is what is crime. So I guess I do agree that in these cases, whenever it is linked to some kind of an action and some kind of an targeted intent, it's a different story.
Right.
Yes.
Let's. Would you like to talk about how things were before social media? How has number one was there a lesser freedom of speech before social media, and now because of it, it has increased, and or do you think it has decreased because of social media and they have put in more restrictions than they were before the advent? And talk about a little bit of history.
Yeah, for instance, in the early times, there was always some kind of restriction as soon as the tribes were formed and the story or narratives were told. There was always some kind of restrictions coming in after some time, especially when this religion started forming in the human society. So it formed a huge block of the people following a similar kind of ideology. And if you don't follow this ideology, then absolutely you are restricted. But then also there are cultures and society where the freedom of speech and expression was valued and were allowed to have the freedom of this. For instance, they are telling that earlier wars between the Devatas and Dasyus or Danavas were also based on this because they are telling that the historians are telling that the majority of the polytheist religion and beliefs of the Indo-Gangetic plain or the Sindhu Sanskriti was for the polytheism and multiple of the belief systems and multiple of the expressions, whereas the monotheistic religion, which was Zoroastrian religion, it was thrown out of India and they had to settle down in Iran. Yeah, right. So this was like one of the first battle between uh, accepting many different views or having only one view. But like this, there were always ups and downs. I think there was also uh, very nice time, Roman time, where the Romans were and Greek people also were having democracy, and democracy bring the freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and everybody was allowed to speak what they want. But then again came Christianity in Europe, which completely covered it up and make a lot of restriction of what you speak. And if you don't speak in the line of the church, then you will be tagged as a witch or something like that. And it is happening like this. So I think the restriction of the freedom of speech has a history, as much history as humankind is there. No. But at the same time, the struggle for liking the freedom of speech and desiring the freedom of speech was always existing. So it does not matter how much these people were trying to restrict, there were always people who were desiring to do so. You know,
Right.
like Socrates and others, right? Throughout the
Right.
history you can find. So I believe that the advent of the democracy and the nation states in the 19th century and liberalism, women became liberated, slaves become liberated, and all these things brings very nice atmosphere in the society where freedom of speech is appreciated, but it was never in the history earlier that it was so much appreciated. So I believe that we are living just after the nice time, and I just wish that in future the freedom of expression should not be restricted. But that's my wishful thinking. Okay.
Okay, Uruk, would you like to add to it?
I'm not really sure about very old history, but I do agree that recently, at least, um, in general, the world has seen growth in freedom of speech.
True. Okay, so let's just concentrate on again. Let's come back to like history and democracy and all of that. Now, presently, we all believe the controls are never going to completely go off. Let's talk about how the control can be more refined and can be more could get better basically. So right now this control of the social media lies with the company. It kind of company has more powers as to you know keep which of the tweet or keep which of the post or anything like that, and you can also remove them. So basically the power rests more with the company and less with the government, or maybe they share the equal power, but it is one space, one very important space where government definitely doesn't have a major share of power. How do you see that? Is it a healthy condition for the government? Like, if at all there has to be a power, how should it be divided between the company and the government? Let's start with you, Urvak.
So I do think that that's a healthy situation for companies to have that power, because again, what if government is based on opinions, right? It is based on a democratic government based on votes, based on opinions. So if a government can control opinions, then it just breaks down, because if you cannot spread your ideology, people are going to not vote for that, and that breaks everything down, right? So it's just, you can say, like a cycle, that the government can restrict opinions, and then those opinions form the same government over and over again and forms some kind of a dictatorship, right? So I don't think that the government should have the power, but yes, certainly that a platform can have that power. You can say that if you have a university, then the university can decide that we don't want people or our students or the faculty to curse on the campus, right? So
Hmm.
whatever the platform may be, they should or not is a different question, but they of course can, and many people want that they do. And especially with social media sites, you always have options. You can always choose something else. Though I know that they are largely monopolistic, and but that's a different story, and maybe we should do something about them. Social media being monopolistic, but certainly they do have the right. to control their platforms. And that's the next best thing we have got, because the government cannot, because of democracy. So then the next best thing is the companies doing it, because yes. And in general, you can see, even if there's a single account banned of any popular person, there is a lot of discussion on that. So I think it is in some ways that we do have, the criticism that the companies face. They are very sensitive to that, and I do think that they do react to that. So I don't think I do think that is a quite nice system that we have right now, that companies are self-policing that.
Okay, so what kind of a percentage partnership would you prefer it to be? Like 100% company control, or maybe a little bit of government control and more of a company?
100% company.
Huh?
100% company control. Yeah.
Okay, fine. What are your thoughts on it, Dr. Ravan?
My thoughts are more towards the democracy. So my problem with the companies having the absolute power over restricting somebody's free speech is this that in the company's decision there is no stake of role. Nobody who is of the users. So users don't make decision whether the company can allow this person to ban from the platform or not. So users have no say, and that's where I believe that the government is better, in the sense that government at least is elected by the people, so people have some kind of say there. Whereas in the company there is no say of the democratic values. But at the same time, uh, when you are on the side of the government, everything looks very nice. But when you are against the government, then again the government has a right to make a law. So if you are having just a different of opinion with the government, then you are in the wrong side and you pay price for that. So I believe that there should be some solution coming out where the users of the platform also has say. So even if Twitter wants to restrict, for instance, Trump, but if most of the Twitter users do not want Trump to be thrown from the platform, then he should not be thrown. But right now, currently there is no system. So like currently we are thinking only about two options, that either government or either the companies. The company has also the disadvantage and advantages. Government has also advantage and disadvantage. But as a free speech absolutist, I think that should be no restriction again on the platforms. So the company which is earning money by recording the data of the people, they have no right to restrict anyone from the platform. Uh, Only if they are doing physical harm to others, they should be um, punished, but otherwise not. So I don't think we are in current situation perfectly situated by giving all the powers to the company. But at the same time, I think to give all the power to government is also not the correct decision, because maybe in many of the countries where dictator is ruling, you will not be able to express yourself. Just like China is not allowing any social media which is not under the government control. So that is also not the ideal situation. And absolutely,
India has banned TikTok.
Yes,
India has banned TikTok too.
India has also banned
Yeah.
TikTok.
So yeah, any media that is not under their control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would
Yes,
like
so think something. Huh?
I'd like to suggest a very interesting solution, which is if you look at Instagram, they have this sensitive content thing, right? So they will warn you that this content is sensitive, and then you can watch it, right? So I guess a midway solution could be that platforms cannot block anybody, but you can of course warn your users that yes, you are going to watch something sensitive. So I guess that's an interesting midway solution.
Okay. I do not necessarily have a solution to this problem. It could be very interesting to come up with this. I would just like to enlist what could happen if any of them had a major share in the whole system. So government, as we mentioned, yes, as we would truly mention, uh, because it has that power to change people's opinion. It would tweak it to get opinions in favor, and ultimately resulting into a cycle that will result in a kind of a monopoly or autocracy, or the same basically shift of power towards the same people or the same group. Similarly, amongst, I think, whenever you have the control with the company, now company is generally owned by some very rich people, some very rich people. So basically, the power or the rich investors, and power actually shifts to some rich people instead of some politically powerful people. So it's anyways, both the ways it's not democratic. So I guess the good way would be definitely, I would say, voting for the kind of content. What do people think about it? Be uh, good enough, or maybe some kind of a uh, artificial intelligence which can
Yeah.
decide without being biased towards anything. Probably would be a good solution to it. Okay, so let's talk about other things which have happened, which is not just the social media. We have in the recent past had Julius Assange being arrested for leaking certain sensitive documents of the government. Similarly, Edward Snowden case, which also had leaking of documents and sensitive data. What is your take on all of these incidents? Of course, I guess the general public opinion outside of these governments tends to be with these people who truly were able to leak the sensitive data. But let's talk about leaking of certain prohibited documents and other data. We'll begin with you, Vibha.
So I do think that it is so certainly I guess nobody is arguing the fact that the leaked documents were a positive impact on the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you need to, but you need to understand that governments have secrets and they would protect their secrets. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that any government can function properly without keeping any secrets. So so there is uh, this conundrum that what is the people's right to get the information, at the same time how can the government keep secrets, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I guess up till it doesn't restrict government's functions, then there should be no secrets in the government, and there should be the laws protecting whistleblowers of such secrets, right? So if you look at, say, the uh, Julius Assange's case, where there was this video footage of an Apache helicopter firing on an hospital, right? You know, releasing that footage won't affect any functions of the government, right? Doesn't further affect it in fighting the same war or anything like that, right? So I guess in those cases, people should be protected, whistleblowers should be protected, and especially with Julius Assange. He didn't leak any files. He just somebody else leaked it that he published, right? So that comes under free speech. That is not whistleblowing. While in the Snowden's case, of course, he was the whistleblower himself. Uh, so I do think that there should be laws protecting whistleblowers, and of course, people like Julius Assange cannot be prosecuted because it's free speech. But for whistleblowers, I guess there has to be secrets. There has to be laws protecting governments from leaking of their secrets. But
How do you have
secrets
laws protecting government as well as the whistleblowers put together?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. If the release of the secrets do not affect the functioning of the government, then those secrets should be released. Should be released by government themselves. Okay, you shouldn't have to whistleblow for them. And if they don't release it, then whistleblowing should be allowed, right? But if it does affect the functions of the government, then of course you cannot whistleblow. So of course there is this little discretion and gray zone, and but I guess judiciary should be actively separating these kind of categories.
What are your thoughts, Dr. Rahul?
Yeah, I broadly agree with everything what Urvak said on this particular issue. So Julian Assange was more like how Urvak also described, how describing more as a journalist than whistleblower. So that was absolutely no case that he should be restricted. And about Snowden case also, he did reveal some of the files which were related to national security or something. But still, I don't think that it was a huge issue. And I'm of the opinion that the government should be every 5 years or 4 years term should be declaring all their papers openly. There should not be kept any secret, because uh, under the secret you uh, have many uh, corruption cases, many uh, warmongers describing themselves as a leader of the country or something. So, except that the citizens of the country are under the threat or danger because of
Right.
the leaking of the information, I think there should be allowance for protecting the whistleblower. And so maybe government can make a rule like this, that every 4 years or 5 years we will declare all our old papers open.
I guess there are existing laws around that.
Yes, but then also they are keeping many of the things like according to keeping the national security, we cannot describe this thing. So I believe that there should be some kind of secrets, but it should be in absolutely necessary case where the threat of the country's citizens is not uh, the life of the country's citizens is not under the threat. So I also agree that Julian Assange should not be in the consulate for so many years. So this was completely wrong. And about Snowden also, I believe that he should be pardoned.
Okay. My personal opinion here would be also similar to you guys. Of course, we need more transparency with the government, and I guess with the technology and with again this communication, we will be able to have much more transparency than we've ever had. So, of course, the demands for transparency are going to increase in all the areas that the government functions. So, of course, we want that. Uh, there definitely will be secrets, yes. They could be lesser, yes. Uh, whistleblowers, depending on the kind of information they have leaked, should be punished, because we also have, say, people in the army who give out the information to other countries, or like very sensitive data. We do punish them. So in a similar way, we do punish whistleblowers. Not just national security, I guess some other issues also maybe. And yeah, that's again a fine balance which needs to be right now tilted towards whistleblowers more, according to current situation. Right. So let's just, these are the things that we are talking about, the absolute uh, kind of rejections that people can have. Let's talk about more subtle rejections that you could face. This again also has been throughout the history of human civilization. Whenever you express an opinion, an unpopular or seemingly offending opinion, you are ostracized from a certain community. Now, as Dr. Raval had pointed out before, this culture has been prevailing or has gotten into the social media space as well, wherein if you express a certain unpopular opinion, you will be maybe unfollowed, truly unfollowed, but you will also be kind of pushed out of a certain social media group. Or if you have a community that uh, has say a community, a professional community, or maybe a social community, and you express that opinion and you are just pushed out of that, so that's not a lawful punishment. It's again a certain social law and society punishing us. What do you have to say on that? What is the right balance of things? Is it correct or not? And what are the remedies to the problems? Dr. Rahul, will start with you.
Okay, so this cancel culture, although we have named it now, but it was always existing. It was existing when scientists were born by the church. It was existing when the witches were born throughout the Europe in every village. It was existing when apostates were punished by thrown by stones. So they were given the sentence of death through the stones. So this was always existing in human society. But now it is getting more pronounced, and now we have opportunity to speak against it. Earlier, like uh, in and still in many religions, like if you cannot say that you are belonging to X religion, you have left this X religion, because then your life itself will be on the threat. So this is also some kind of cancel culture that if you leave the sect, you are not allowed to come to the church, for instance. So it is ostracization, and this is always happening. And but now it has become more prominent in time of social media. Especially people have become too much critical. Uh, in fact, social media has emboldened people who were more reclusive and introvert to come very boldly out and express their opinion. And uh, like many of the individuals whom I know in personal life who are never trolling in personal life. But when they are on the social media, they are trolling others. so, so, so this kind of hidden human behavior comes out in the social media. And many of the times the army of the trolls does not matter if it is from the left side or right hand side, it will just troll you desperately. There are also, like we have heard about, teenagers getting suicide because the classmates abuse them on Facebook or something, right? So this is now becoming more and more prevalent and more and more open. You know, earlier people who were hiding about they left the religion, they are now coming on the YouTube and telling that they have already left the religion. No, which was punishable to death in their religion, but now they are able to express it. So this new media has given us freedom, but at the same time, it has given us this new culture where the stone throwers in the past has been now trolls on the internet, or maybe bullies on the internet.
I would like to chip in there that you being able to tell you have left a religion is actually a certain cultural development, because of the kind of reach that YouTube has, or any other this internet in general has. You would probably think more before saying all these things, because it was out in so open, just so open. Especially with YouTube, where if you have your face talking about it and you reveal your identity, then that means we are living in a much better society where you are able to say these things without feeling threats to be harmed, right? So it's I think it's a good thing. Contrary to that, one point that we have not discussed, I remember, is that social media, a lot of platforms have this barrier of anonymity, which can be so nice in certain ways. Like it can give you such a nice environment to
Yeah, yeah.
explore, to express, and at the same time, again, you will be able to bully somebody, or abuse them, or do any, you know just in general unlawful things, just some immoral things in general sense, to be able to do it more easily because of the anonymity. So yeah, this anonymity, again, you may not do that had you written down your name or you had your face on the social media, but you might have a certain account only for doing these unlawful things in which you are not recognized, right? So yeah, so it has given rise to more abuse and more unlawful kind of interactions because of the anonymity. That is true. And yes, cancel culture has always been there, nothing new about it. Just the fact that it could happen with certain trivial things also. I had been talking to my cousin of lately, and she mentioned that you could get cancelled from a certain community if you don't like certain kind of music, right? So that's a bit too much, you know.
Okay, kind of.
It's hmm? Yeah,
I did
you
not
could
know.
be you could be thrown out of a community or ostracized if you do not like a certain kind of music.
Ah, okay.
So you are morally obliged to like that music. I mean, at least when there was no social media,
Yeah.
uh, there was not this kind of extremism. It's no longer even about religion or political ideology or this and that. Maybe they will put these things into the whole chain, but at the end of it, you not liking certain things like music, then doesn't. It's a very simple thing, but it has these added pressure also to conform to social norms in a certain way. It has added to it. So this cancel culture has actually also definitely gone much beyond what it was existing before this. Because again, I guess opinions are increasing, so is the sort cancel culture probably in equal phases. But I really don't know how to get over it, and how. Uh, I mean, I really don't know what to do about it. What do you have to say on this as well?
Yeah, so especially when it comes to, I guess, things like music, the big corporations are using your tribal brain against you, I guess. They are using
Yeah.
psychological techniques to make you do that.
Totally.
But otherwise, I guess we have to recognize that it is very important for us to ostracize people sometimes. Okay,
Hmm.
because we all know that certain things that the government cannot punish you for are punished by the society, right? And I guess one of the examples would be cursing, right? That it could be that the population believes that, okay, cursing cannot be a crime and the government cannot punish you, but people won't like you if you curse. The people would
Hmm.
not do if you curse a lot, right? So that
It's,
kind of,
it's a punishment. Yeah, it's a social punishment.
yes, it's a social punishment. So I guess in some places it is needed, but I guess lately there have been a lot of groups of people who just say that we just don't want to discuss. We believe what we do and we are correct, and we don't want to discuss. I guess that is not good, and I do think that under a lot of these cases, there are big, powerful individuals and organizations who are trying to create this kind of tribal mentality amongst in many cases, most cases, I suppose. So we should be aware that we are being manipulated this way, and at least we should be open to discussion on.